Just saying that I'm excited about this episode feels like a gross misrepresentation of what we actually feel having these two vehicles here today. Now, a couple of years ago, we did a showdown of sorts on 4 generations of the BMW 7 Series. We had my E38, we had an E65, an F02, and then the G12 at the time. But we didn't really have a lot of time to spend with any of the other cars. That's why today's spotlight is on this 2018 BMW M760Li. But instead of just showing you everything that all the other journalists around the world have already done, all the performance and data and all the fun stuff with this car, we're taking a different twist on it. We're going to be looking at my 2001 BMW 740iL, as well as thinking back to the 2750 V12 that we did earlier last year, and seeing how it has evolved into the G12 BMW 7 Series. Now, I feel that this might be obvious to a lot of you, but I still need to say it because we might get comments about it. So before you start typing, we are not doing a comparison between these two cars. First of all, my 2001 is a V8. This is a V12. This is also an M Performance version, even though it is the only one that BMW sells now as a V12. You can't get a regular 760 anymore. So we're not comparing them because they really just don't compete. This car brand new was about $97,000. This car brand new is $185,000. Even with inflation, this would never even reach it. And even the E38 BMW 750iL that we featured back in July really doesn't touch this. I think the MSRP of that was about $115,000, $120,000 Canadian. So there is really no comparison, but what we're doing is sort of an evolution video. I want to show you guys how this car has changed, why people still consider the E38 to be the best 7 Series ever made, quite possibly the best BMW ever made, but then how it has translated into this car that has now cost twice the price of what mine did, and also how it can go from a meager 282 horsepower or about 322 horsepower with the V12 up to 601. So let's take a look. First off, the G12 here has a lot of front end tech. Now there are some similarities, of course. Both have headlight washers. That's about it. The G12 has full LED headlights, LED running lights, and LED high beams. And high beams, they're very graceful. When you turn them on, they're not an instant light. They gradually turn on, like you're dimming the lights. It's very nice. Now there are no fog lights on this car because the intercoolers for the turbos are on each side of the vehicle here to allow for more airflow to come in. Now I know the G12 that we featured earlier, the LED strip as the fog lights is pretty small. So I guess you could say you probably could fit it in there. But if you take a look at what Audi does with their RS vehicles, they don't add fog lights, and I believe Mercedes-Benz does the same thing. So they are keeping with other traditional vehicles that don't have fog lights because they're more sporty, and even the M vehicles from BMW have no fog lights. Now, that's about the only thing that's the same about these. Sure, they've got parking sensors. There's parking sensors on the front and back of both cars. Mine has that as the option, but the G12 takes it a little bit further. They are also on the side, actually much like the W140 Mercedes S-Class we featured earlier. So it gives more of a 360-degree view of how close you are to things, and it does help because you can do not only autonomous sort of parking, so as you're coming up to a spot, it'll tell you if it can fit, but you can use your smart remote for this car and park the car without being in it. And it uses the parking sensors on the side. We actually pulled it out here and it closed the mirrors because it knew it was a little too close to the side there, pulled itself out, and then was ready to go. Very cool feature, something that I don't think a lot of people are going to use, especially on a day-to-day basis. But I guess if you do have a very tight living space, maybe you live in New York City and you have one garage space and it is tight, then you do have the option to do it. We must note though that we have had issues connecting to it. Even in the middle of nowhere, it will say there is interference, so it is kind of hit or miss, at least for us. Now there also is still a lot of tech going on with this vehicle. The kidney grills here, they've certainly gotten a lot bigger. If you take a look at mine, they are hugely different compared to the car today. But these ones are active shutters. So as you're on the highway and you don't need as much air, they'll close for better aerodynamics. When the car's running, sitting still, it will be open. And then that way, if you're sitting at a stoplight, it's warm out, you have your air conditioning on, it'll cool down the car a little bit better. Obviously, my car doesn't have that, but you can see just how big they've gotten. I think that probably one of the kidney grills here on the G12 is about the same size as 2 of mine. Now, as we move along the car, you do have power folding mirrors, which is nice. We do have that as an option on our E38. And then it does have comfort access on the G12. So you can use your remote in your pocket and you just put your hand in the door handle and it'll unlock, or just push the little contact point on the top of the door handles and they will lock for you. That's something that was not available on the E38 at the time. And I believe it was the E65 that first introduced comfort access. Now, when it comes to the rims on the 760 here, they aren't the actual rims that came on it. These are supposed to be style 760M rims, but I'm actually not too sure what these came off of. They still are 20-inch rims. They might just be off of a regular G12 7 Series, but it's interesting. They are 275s on the back, whereas the E38 was 255. So these are not that much bigger as they are now. Maybe they are with the M760 rims, but for the most part, it hasn't gotten a whole lot bigger. The car still has similar profile tires as it was on the E38. And then around back, things are relatively simple. They do put the V12 badges on the C-pillars now. We have not really seen that before on this placement. I believe they did have them on the front fenders for the E66s. But aside from that, they have also changed the lettering as well. It's the block lettering that they use for the M Performance versions of the cars, and not like mine, which is a little bit bigger. And then along the back, you have the M760Li badging. Again, in the States, we mentioned this during our live stream. In the US, it is only called an M760i because all 7 Series there now are sold as long wheelbase, but you can get a long or short version here in Canada. And I don't quite know why they dropped the lettering. Why not just keep it there so that people do know that it is a long? Now, the trunk opens up automatically, closes automatically as well. That was an option really only for European versions of the E38. They've hidden all the batteries throughout this car. There's actually 3 of them, whereas the E38 V12 would have had only 2, and it makes sense. There's a lot of tech in this car, way more than our E38 ever would have had. So you do need more battery power for a car like this. Now, obviously, it makes sense to start in the E38 here because this is really where it all began. I think that this is really the most modern of BMW's classic 7 Series models. The E32 is very nice, but it just feels a little bit older. This still feels relatively modern when you sit in it today. Now, much like what BMW was doing at the time, everything was driver focused. The navigation screen here and the HVAC controls are all turned towards the driver, and that's still something that's true with the G12. A couple other little things that are true with it as well. The chrome line interior trim, the grab handles here with the wood and chrome accents, you can still find that on the V12. Now, if we think back to the 750iL we featured, everything really was covered in leather. The dashboard was all leather. The door cards were leather. There's a little bit of leather here, but for the most part, everything was either leather or wood trim, and it was quite a nice experience. Everything was very soft to the touch, and for the most part, I mean, aside from not having the leather in this car, everything was about the same. The back seat area as well in this car at the time was quite advanced. You could move the seat up or back a little bit, and you had an armrest, and you had, digital climate control on some models, but for the most part, it was just a little switch to turn it on or off. And cup holders. We have the vanity lights in the back here. There's no mirrors. That's something that you would have had to get either with the L7 E38, or you would have had to go through BMW individual to get things like the little mirrors in the roof. So for the most part, this was about as fully loaded as this car came. And I think it's still a good example to be able to show that this has really evolved. I mean, I, again, think that this is one of the most modern of BMW's classic cars. You still can use everything. Everything has worked throughout the years and still continues to work, especially if you update little things here and there. But for the most part, it really does feel just as modern as you would kind of expect a 7 Series to be. And especially when you look at the new one, I mean, obviously there's huge differences, but you can still see that the core, the fundamental design of BMW has not changed a whole lot. Still very driver focused, and still lots of space. Everything is laid out in a very nice arrangement, and you can feel that this really is just an older version of the G12 in front of us. Now, I know a lot of people really want to see the performance of the M760Li, but unfortunately, it's basically been raining the entire time that we've had this car. And today is kind of the worst of the rain, but it's not like it's been any better all week. It's just been really rough. So we're not really going to be pushing this car. And to be fair, there's a lot of reviews out there that really push this car to its limit. So I really suggest taking a look at that, because I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on the comfort and overall ride of this vehicle, because that's what's important to me. It's fun having 601 horsepower and 590 foot-pounds of torque, especially with all-wheel drive. This thing launches like crazy, and BMW claims you can get 3.7 seconds 0 to 100 kilometers with it. And I believe them, because can see here, we're gonna go from a quick dig. It is wet. Like I said, we're not gonna go too crazy. We're not even in sport mode, but that's full throttle. Holy shit. And just like that, we're at 108. Like that was quick. And that wasn't, I'd say 90% throttle. That's fast on a super wet. I mean, if you were watching old Top Gear right now, they would put like a double wet on the track for this kind of day. But that's not the whole point of the car, at least not for me. I know it's got the M badge on it. It's an M performance car, but it's not like they make a 760Li anymore. You can only get the M760Li. So for me, I like driving this car. I actually usually have it in Comfort Plus, and I can really just glide along. It feels very similar actually to a lot of the S-Class models that we've driven. And I know we haven't driven anything recently, but it really does compete with the S-Classes of decades past in terms of smoothness. And everything else also shifts and rides very well. I mean, the transmission is an 8-speed ZF transmission, and it works quite well, especially if you do put it into sport mode and use the paddle shifters or just the Tiptronic here, the Steptronic transmission. It works pretty well. But for me, again, it's all about smoothness. And I like the fact that when I come off the line, yeah, there's a lot of power, but I can be nice and smooth about it. The car will likely start in second, especially in the comfort mode here. Or I can even put it into Eco Pro mode, which turns everything into a very limited amount of power. Really try to be conservative, because I have to say we can get, if we were super conservative with this car, you might be able to get about 600 kilometers to a tank, but we're definitely not averaging that. I think we're at 14.9 liters per 100 kilometers. And that has been with a significant portion on the highway and a significant portion driving economically. So this car eats a lot of gas. I mean, it's a 6.6 liter engine. But overall, I mean, the ride is fantastic. I'm always very comfortable sitting in here. The driver and the rear seats all have massage function. All 4 seats have heat and ventilation. It's really just the passenger that's sitting beside you that gets the bum end of the deal. There is no massage functionality for them, and I think it's because they've got the executive tier 2 package in the back, so the little footrest comes down from the back. Maybe that's why there's too many mechanics in the back of the seat that makes it impossible for BMW to put the seat massager functionality in it. So I think that's why you lose out. Really though, I mean, if you're buying this, in our situation, our daughter sits in the back, my wife sits beside me, so she doesn't really use the massage function anyway, even if it was there. But I think she'd be kind of disappointed if we actually did buy this car and she really wanted to have a massage, she'd have to sit in the back. But overall though, I mean, the seat comfort is fantastic. Visibility is good too. We're talking about how things have changed since the early introduction of the E38 back in 95 when they first came out, and really our 2001. And I have to say the seats are way better in this, and even with the sport seats that we've driven in other vehicles, there's just really no comparison. This is so nice, way nicer than anything that I've driven of BMW in the past. And that's one of the reasons why you're paying $185,000 for a car like this. You want absolute comfort, and the fact that everything is wrapped in either leather or wood is very nice, very similar to what the E38 V12 has, but there's just way more of it. Now, there are certainly some similarities still. For example, wood grab handles with chrome accents, carried over from the E38. A driver-oriented display setup here. Everything is still angled towards the driver, and it's still pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, they've changed the layout a little bit, but you've got your iDrive controller up top, and then you've got your HVAC controls and media controls beyond there, and it's just turned a little bit towards the driver, because whether you're driving it or being driven, it's important for the driver to have access to all this information here. And we are going to talk about the back seats. We're going to jump in there after our little road test here to see what it is going on back there, because I got to say there's a ton of stuff in the back. Destroys the E38 in terms of what was available in terms of tech and comfort. But obviously from a design perspective, things have changed. I know that the leather is everywhere and the wood is everywhere, and it is similar to the E38. And again, the basic layout of everything makes sense. It's a car, right? I mean, they're all going to be kind of the same. But there are tons of electronic differences. I mean, iDrive in its current form is easily the best system that we've used, and it does have wireless Apple CarPlay. So you have your phone in your pocket, it'll connect automatically. The only things that we find, same thing with the Mini Countryman that we did earlier, is when you have your phone in your pocket. I'm using the iDrive maps because they're phenomenal. Let's say I get a phone call. All of a sudden, everything is going to go back to Apple CarPlay, even though it's not what I was using before. It really gets buggered up. So it feels like BMW, it's either not their fault and it's something that Apple does, or BMW really just needs to focus on what the user wants, because I don't really want to use Apple CarPlay in this. I want to be able to get my phone calls, I want to be able to see my text messages and reply to them, and if I really need to, I'll use Apple Maps. But I like using iDrive and I like using the media, but every time I do something on my phone, it switches the media over to the car here from my phone, and it's really an annoyance, really bothersome, because I just want to listen to XM radio and it just keeps switching it to Twitter. Open up Twitter, switches it to basically a dead audio source from a GIF that was playing. Now, there's also a lot of other features with iDrive that are going on. You do have a 360-degree camera system with forward and rear cross-traffic alert, and it is a wide-angle view that you can see out of the front. Really helpful when you're pulling out of a spot, especially with a vehicle like this. It's so big, you can't really see. Maybe the car that's parked beside you is parked in a way that you can't see around it. You turn on that camera in the front and you can really get an idea of who's coming along. You can also pinch your fingers and move the display around and see your car in a 3D rendered version of where you are. And I have to say that it's super accurate. It doesn't work in every single situation. If a car's parked way too close to you, then it's going to look really weird. But I have to say it's really impressive. If you park somewhere, maybe you pull into a parking lot and I don't know, you just want to play with it, you show it off, you show people, it works quite well, and I'm really impressed at how quick it is and how accurate. It really shows the difference in depth. It's not just a picture of the environment. They really can make it look like you're in a 3D world, and then as you move away, it'll start to roll the car and show everything in real time. It looks very nice, and one of the things that, again, it's not something that you're going to buy this car specifically for that, but a really cool feature, again, that you can show off and might be useful to some. Now, speaking of displays, there are two more of them for the driver in the front here. You do have a color heads-up display. There's not much customization to it. You can remove certain features like not being able to see the speed limit, but for the most part, it's just going to show you the speed limit, your current speed, and then it'll turn the speed red if you're speeding. And then when you have navigation on, it'll show you in the heads-up display what your next turn is and things like that. The other display is the instrument cluster. It's completely digitized now. It's all customizable in the sense that when you change into a different mode, whether it's sport or adaptive, it'll change the way the layout is. So in sport mode, it shows you big numbers for your speed and the current gear you're in. Everything turns red to make it a little bit more aggressive. You put it into eco mode, gets rid of the tachometer, and it'll also show you the limit that you've set for how fast you want the car to be going. Now, obviously, you can go faster than the little limit that you put, but it's trying to keep you under that limit. So for example, the journalist before had it set to 130. I changed it down to 115 because I think that's a little bit more manageable in an economic sense if you're trying to save gas. But overall, it doesn't have a lot of customization. Once you change the drive type, it'll make a different display for you, but your board computer is pretty much limited to your mileage and instant real-time fuel economy. And then the last little tech gadget here, obviously you do have the BMW remote key, which allows you to see if your doors are locked and your lights are on and things like that. It does need to be charged. So in the armrest here, there is a little slot for it that you can slide it into. Fits very well. You close it up and you can kind of forget about it. And then it will remind you. You can turn it off if you really want to, but it will remind you if there's a device that's being charged in the armrest. So often we'll get to a destination, I'll have left that in there charging for half an hour. I'll sort of forget that I've left it in there charging, turn off the car and open my door, and it'll say, hey, there's something still in there, why don't you pick it up? Now, you are supposed to be able to use it as a phone charger as well. My iPhone 8 Plus does not fit with it, but I do believe if you had a smaller phone, if you put it into that compartment and it is compatible, you should be able to use it. But again, none of the phones that we have, the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, Samsung Galaxy Note 8, none of them fit, so I can't tell you if they work. Okay, we're in sport mode now. When we put it in sport mode, the exhaust really livens up a lot more than it did. Very interesting, very similar to the Mini Countryman, where it almost sounds like there's some sort of butterfly valve in there that will open it up more to pump out more audio from the exhaust, and it sounds very good. You give it a little rip. Oh yeah. Oh, now it's certainly not as loud as the S600 straight pipe that we did, but it does have a pretty good sound. People will hear you as you're driving along, maybe not as much as you might expect from an M car, something like an M5 maybe, but it does have a good sound to it. And we'll try here if you can hear it. We're gonna go again from a dig. We're not gonna go too fast because the road is quite garbage. Not only is it raining a lot, but the physical road is garbage. But you can hear it, it's nice. It's not overpowering. It's still subtle. It's still a BMW V12. It's not a performance V12. So you're not going to be screaming down the street like you would in a supercar, but I do like the sound of it. And honestly, I've been driving it quite a bit also in sport mode, not to go fast, but just that I can hear that exhaust, because it does have a pretty good note. Oh my God, there's so much torque. Now, before I run out of gas, let's jump in the back and see how things are in the back seat if you have $185,000 and you don't want to drive. Now, really, the whole point you buy this car, especially with the $10,000 Executive Lounge Tier 2, is to be driven in it, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. It is insanely comfortable here. Not only is it comfortable because the seats are just as nice in the front, but they can do much more here, especially on this side. We talked about how the driver has pretty much the most amount of control, and then the passenger in the front doesn't have the massage functions, and they kind of get left out. But you do have controls here to be able to move your seat, much like the E38 that we featured back in July. Obviously, my car doesn't have the power seating, but the V12s usually did. This takes it to a whole new level, though. There's a button which basically puts this car into ultimate relaxation mode. The front seat here starts to move out of the way, and it'll push itself forward. The headrest will go down. The screen will be in a better position. And now it says the sleep position has been reached, because that's basically what this is. If you're an executive, you are tired after your very, very busy long day at work, and you don't want to be driven anymore, and you just want to have a little sleep as you get to your house, your airport, whatever it is. You have to get into your G5 airliner, whatever the hottest new personal jet is. You can put your feet up, obviously shoes free, put your head into the pillow, and you can have a nice sleep. You can control all of it from the tablet here. We talked about how Apple CarPlay comes with this vehicle, but not Android Auto, and it's interesting because this tablet is an Android tablet. It's actually a Samsung tablet. So it's funny that they don't have Android Auto, but they still rely on it for things like the controls back here. Now we'll put it back into normal mode, and you can save your seat preferences. So for example, we've put it as seat number 1, position number 1 under seating controls. So all I have to do is really just push the seat 1, and then we're good to go. We go back into my most comfortable position, which is also good for the driver too, because that headrest covers things up. There's still a lot more that you can do with the little tablet back here than just move the seats out of the way. Interior lighting, you can turn on and off everything if you want. You can also open up all the sunshades. So for example, we can open up everything back here, and you'll notice things get quite a lot brighter than they were before. But since I am the type of person that doesn't like people to see me as I'm being driven around in, I'm going to keep them shut. Now the other thing too that really is cool is the music. Your driver can be listening to something like the 80s channel. Maybe you're not too into that kind of hair rock, so you want to listen to something else. If you have headphones, you can plug them in right here where the Blu-ray player drive is, and then you can select your own Sirius XM radio or anything else. There's a Blu-ray player, DVD player, HDMI input, and USB, so you can have any type of music playing or video, and you don't have to hear it, and you can have a different channel. You can have up to 3 channels of XM radio, considering there is one for the front, and then your 2 monitors back here each have their own headphone jack. Now the last thing that you can do, which is really fun, and the whole point of having a chauffeur, if you're the type of person that doesn't like to communicate with your chauffeur, you can use your tablet back here, click on your screen, and you can say, okay, here's my map, let's go. I'd like to enter in a destination here. I don't want to talk to my driver. I don't want to tell them where I'd like to go, because they should already know where I want to go anyway, but I'm going to enter a new destination. And I can type in whatever I want. The great thing is you can search for it, and everything works quite well. It is a, as I said, Android tablet, so it works as you would expect an Android tablet to work. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in the destination I want, click select, and since we are in Quebec, everything is in French, but the tablet here is in English, so when we search for it, I have to correct it all the time. And here we go. We are going to the Maison des Arts des Jardins de Drummondville. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to say, yeah, we're good to go. And then you can't automatically do it. You have to go back into the settings here, and you have to say suggested. Now the driver is going to see it, and they're going to say, ah, yes, I will take you there. And all they have to do is click the iDrive controller to say start guidance, and they'll be able to go there. And it's super simple. You can do that, and then you can see on your monitors back here how close you are to your destination, just like you would on your own private jet.
I will take you there, sir.
There we go. That's customer service. Now, certainly there's still a couple other little gadgets and dillies back here. You do have your table, so if you were to have some food, mommy, I want some food, mommy, mommy, mommy. You have a little table here. There's only one. So again, this car is really designed for one passenger in the back. You certainly could have somebody beside you here, but the whole idea is it's really driver and you being in the back here. But I gotta say, everything's really nice. You have dual zone climate control. It is unified, again, fan speed and direction for the back here. So the front is true dual zone, where you can control fan speed, temperature, and direction, whereas back here, it's just the temperature on either side, and you can sync it all, so all four corners are all the same, but fan speed and direction are going to be unified for the back passengers here. But I think if you have $185,000 and you're being driven in this car, chances are you're the only person back here, so it's not going to matter. So we dropped off the M760Li a few days ago, and this is the first time I've had the chance to drive my E38 since then. And it gives me a good opportunity, again, to go on a slightly longer drive than I normally do with this car to get a good feel for it. And there's so much different with this car. I mean, from a mechanical standpoint, the G12, especially with the M760, it had xDrive, so four-wheel drive. It had integral active steering, which is BMW's fancy way of saying all four wheels turn at the same time, which is very interesting. And I could feel it a hell of a lot more on that car than I did on the Cadillac CT6, which also had four-wheel steering. And then even the 750Li that we featured a few months ago, that car also had integral active steering, but you couldn't feel it as much. I felt with this, like you'd go around a corner and it was really just a little weird, not quite what I expected. And I'm not saying it was necessarily a bad thing, you just felt it a whole lot more than you have on other vehicles. But there's so much going for that car, but it's important to then get into this and see really what all of that began with, because I really think the E38 is the first and last modern 7 Series that's considered a classic, right? The E65, I know there's a lot of people out there who like them. I would buy one, but I don't think they'll ever really be considered a classic car. Same thing with the E32. It's certainly a classic, but I wouldn't say it's very modern. So this really fits into the middle of what you would consider a modern classic vehicle. And it's such a fun car. It's such a treat to be able to get into it and go, and even with all the problems that this one has, it's still phenomenal to drive. And it's really interesting to be able to do them back to back and to be able to say, yeah, you know, this one definitely has a harsher ride to it. It's a little firmer, and you know, it is the sport suspension. This basically has everything that the M Sport would have, minus the sport seats and sport steering wheel. It's got everything, and then obviously other cosmetic designs, but it has the sport suspension, it has the sport transmission, the sport diff. So there's a lot of the Sport 7 Series in this car, but it's also a long wheelbase, so it really fits more in with the G12 that we did. All of our episodes of Test Drive Spotlight, now we wrap up our new cars by showing our likes and dislikes, and we could certainly do that with the M760Li. The problem is, though, we haven't really driven anything else that's in that price range. I mean, the only other car that was new in that price range was the BMW i8, and we didn't really get to drive it on camera. So we can't really say what we like in comparison to other vehicles on the market today. So rather than that, I'm just going to wrap up and talk about this car and how that car felt. And really, I have to say that if you have the money, if I had the money, don't get me wrong, if I had $185,000 or the ability to lease it at about, I don't know, what, $3,500 a month, I would probably do it. Keep it for 3 years. Once the lease is done, give it back. Never think about it again. But this car, this E38 2001 BMW 740iL, I would absolutely never sell this car. I'm so glad that I bought it. And I always encourage people, when they're looking at them, to find the ones that are in the greatest shape that you can with the service history. My check coolant level just popped up, and that's been going on for 2.5 years now. Even though the coolant itself is fine, little things like that can go wrong. So you are going to have to be putting money into this car, but if you think about it, I think this is going to turn heads more than the M760. At least it'll turn quality heads. Sure, everybody's going to look at you in the G12. They'll know roughly that you spent $185,000 on it, but that'll be it. They'll just assume that you have lots of money, you're in some sort of finance or real estate or maybe something you're not supposed to be into, to be able to afford that. Especially at my age, you really get that look a lot from people as they're wondering how you, somebody who's in their late 20s, can afford a car like that. But if you drive something like this, most people are probably going to ignore you. but it's the enthusiasts who know deep down that this car really is special and will always remain special. So that's why I want to end this episode not with saying what's so great and what's not great about the M760Li, because people are going to buy it no matter what. Are they going to buy it because they can't afford the Mercedes S65 AMG? Maybe. Can they afford the S63, but they want to get the V12? Or they just like BMW? Sure. There's people out there who are going to buy those cars, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think it's important to look back at what BMW was doing 15, 20 years ago and see how it's evolved into the design language and technology that a lot of people take for granted today. And I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to feature not only the 2018 M760Li, but we could do it side by side with something that is unmistakably a classic car.